got quorum.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome this morning, beautiful day, September 17th of the year 2020. It's about 7:31 a.m. and we're meeting as Utah Lake Commission Governing Board. I think what I'd like to do is just start off with Sam. Let's do a little bit of a roll call and let's see who is with us, and so that we can know how. Do you have a list of those that should be present?
I do have it in front of me, yeah.
Let's go ahead and just call it out and have those that are present virtually and anchor location just so we have record of attendance.
Okay, sounds good. We have Lon Lott for Alpine.
Here.
Brad Frost for American Fork.
Here.
Denise Anderson.
I'm here.
Thank you, Denise. Chris Finlinson. Brian Steed. Erica Gaddis.
I'm here.
Thank you, Erica. Brian Cottam.
Good morning.
Good morning, Brian. Brittany Bills.
I'm here.
Thank you, Brittany. Chris Condi. I see his name. Chris, I see your name. Are you hearing me okay? Can you respond there? Is that a yes, Chris?
Yes.
Okay, I'll mark Chris yes. I see his name. We heard some noise. Jeff. Hey, Chris, there you are. Okay. Jeff Acerson. Okay. Jeff Acerson. Jeff Lamson.
I'm here. Good morning.
That's Jeff Lamson that's here, or Acerson that's here?
Lamson.
Lamson. Awesome. Great to have you, Jeff. Brian Hewlett. Michelle Kafusi. Soren Christensen. Chris Karn. Kier Scoobs. Craig Jensen. Lori Backus. Tanner Ainge. Tice Flake. And Carrie Malkovich. Okay, Mayor Frost, that puts us at over a quorum, so we're ready to proceed.
Okay, thank you. And if you would just make note of those that come in.
I will do.
To mark their attendance. Okay, we'll move on to item number 2. We have 2 items, action items. Action item number A, and I will just take these motions.
Ready to go, Nat?
And that would be the
You need
government
what?
minutes. Could we have everybody please mute? Oh, there we go. Governing board minutes from June 18th, 2020, our last meeting. Has there been any submitted changes to the minutes?
Had a couple submitted changes and we made those and had those printed on today's version.
Perfect. Okay.
I'll move to approve, Mayor. It's Brian Cottam, move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Brian Cottam.
I'll second.
Second by Lon Lott. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay. Item number 2B is a review monthly budget report from May through August 8th. It was in your packet. Is there any questions for Eric or Sam concerning the bills to be paid for those months? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve the monthly budget reports May to August. This is Craig Jensen.
Okay. I have a motion by Craig and a second by
That's Chris Finlinson.
Chris. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 3. The Governing Board Roundtable. Eric, I'm going to kind of let you take this from on item number 3. We'll discuss this.
Thank you, Mayor. So this one I really wanted, I put it at the front of the agenda so that we could get some discussion. We're interested to hear what we're doing well, what we need to do more of, what we might need to stop. I don't know if I added that as a question, but if there's something that you're not liking. And then specifically what we as staff or as a technical committee could work on. We will discuss one item, the shoreline soils assessment, in a minute here. But what are some thoughts? We're open to ideas and.
I've been talking with people all summer because more people have been going outside to do things, but they're still scared of our lake. And whether it's the algae blooms or things of the past or whatnot, and I know Sam's been doing a great job of trying to get a perception change in media coverage. Do we do many media tours where the media just is invited to tour our projects or things, because they seem to only want to focus on the algae bloom and nothing else. And so I was wondering if they've gone to Wacaraway, if we've had special media days like you would have for other things, to highlight some of the things at the lake so that when they cover it, people know it's open, it's available, it's not a dirty, awful lake. And I don't know, I was just, that came to my mind when you asked these questions.
Okay, we'll give you a short response now and we'll work on a discussion piece for next meeting, but we work really hard to have media at any and every major rollout of a project. Projects, you know, implementation takes a while on a lot of these, but anything that I can recall in the recent past that has either been initiated, kind of a ribbon cutting, or completed, has had media, and we get them out there. But even a media tour, it's a challenging issue because Utah Lake is enormous, and so they'll get a little snapshot of a little portion of the lake and potentially have a really good experience. But conveying that through a news piece that they write to, you know, change perception it's a challenge. So it's an incremental. We're excited if we see incremental positivity towards the lake, but it's one of those, for every one step forward, occasionally there's a few steps back. And so yes, we will make a conscious effort beyond even what we're doing now to make sure that we get media to come tour some of these projects that are starting to roll out.
Well, and just if we even not just had it as they were invited to another project we have, but actually just a media day where we don't have other people. It's just, we're having a media day. We want you to come, ask us questions about what's going on, show you some things so that it's specific to them, not just another assignment.
I like that. We'll add that to our schedule.
Hey, Eric, this is Mayor CUWCD.
Yes.
I just want to say I could do a better job in helping with that as well. And when you get ready to push something out, I'd be happy. I have the resources and the ability to really get behind something, and we can post and blog and send out text and let me be a better partner and help next time you're ready to do a big event down there.
Okay, we will talk about one today, and we'll capitalize on the offers that are coming in. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Good point. Good point. I think, you know, as city representation, we have a pretty big microphone with our social media outreaches as well. Maybe we can, with Mayor CUWCD, maybe if we all just collaborate, if we know it's coming, if you'll provide like a really good image to what it is, so it's really easy for our staff just to take it and lift it onto a certain page, we can certainly, you know, work together on getting as many people there. or at least letting them see that, you know, whether they attend or not, at least we make those attempts and they see it, they'll read it. I think we have a pretty good friend in the Daily Herald. I've read several articles from the Daily Herald. It seems like the microphone is not too far beyond them, unless it's something that, you know, to do with the algae bloom or something like that. But maybe we can get more news outlets into one spot.
Okay. Chris?
You know, we've had a lot of pictures from our photo contest that really are beautiful shots. And I'm wondering if we couldn't periodically, you know, on a regular basis, post those on social media so that we get those out a little bit, so that people starts to show people, you know, the beauty that is down there.
For sure. And we have a growing bank of amazing photos.
Right.
We'll talk about the photo con. Are you going to mention the photo contest today?
Yes, I'd plan to.
Well, this year's photo contest so far has been awesome.
On that same line, you know, you go to a doctor's office or the bank or wherever, and they have pictures of different things. A lot of times they have pictures of like Zion or someplace or up the canyon. Maybe we need to make a pitch to our local business community about having some of those pictures in their lobbies. You know, go to the Chamber of Commerce. We have 8 chambers of commerce in our valley.
We've been getting these photos to you guys, but we hadn't thought of them.
And we might be able to have businesses now purchase those to put in their lobbies and in their patient rooms and things like that, just to showcase our valley.
And we as a city could distribute those pictures to our businesses at a minimal cost.
Yeah. Okay.
I just add for Vineyard, in the past 6 months of our quarantine, and I live on the lake. The lake has just been snowed with our population. And there, Eric, you probably have seen it. There are pathways down across there now that Division of Wildlife are not going to be happy about, that are just beaten. They've made their own recreation down there. And yesterday we put a cut into our embankment, a pathway down, because we're worried about people killing themselves getting down the 15-foot drop. So we put a cut into the embankment, I guess it was Monday. And immediately there were 4 ladies paddleboarding who had managed to get down the 15-foot embankment. And they were overwhelmed with brays as they came up the ramp. And 2 days later, there were 15 of them down there that used that ramp because now they had, quote, access. They were thrilled. So, you know, as we believe in our city, it's a jewel just waiting. The people are ahead of us. Our people are using that lake like crazy. And we're way behind.
I appreciate that.
I get questions about when the trail's going to get all the way around. And of course, we know that's a long one, but people are getting out, not just on the lake, but if we can figure out more of that, of the trail system, and get that out in our coverage of, because each city has its little section, but I think people would really be anxious to learn more about the trail.
Awesome. We've got it. Today is going to be a good meeting. So far, I'm like, wait till it comes in the So,
That's really
excellent feedback. Any other feedback? Anything that we could be putting more effort into, project-wise, event-wise?
You know, I would just make a comment with school last year when they stopped school and went on an online, you know, learning tool. I think the lake became really relevant and with the teachers with easy material, things like that. Are we seeing any with the school starting up? Some kids are online, you know, it's parental choice. Do we feel like we're going to have a good engagement with an educational tool with people that want to keep their kids home and online learn?
Well, we've got Sam working on completing the 4th grade field trip sessions. So each of those, when we held the 4th grade field trips, kids would move around to a different station and learn about various different topics. Sam's working on gathering the last couple online or virtual sessions of those. And what we might consider doing is putting together a press release that says, hey, for parents that are participating in the at-home learning environment, here's some resources for you for the 4th grade age group or whatever age group if you're looking for some cool information locally.
I like that idea.
Because we already have, Sam, how many do we have now? 12?
I think we have 12 right now, and there's 2 more in the works at the moment.
Do you work with any of the homeschool co-ops?
We hadn't until this point because the field trips have always been 4th graders in person, but we've been looking to try and expand the reach of who's aware of them now.
Any other suggestions on how we might use that educational tool? Okay.
All right, great. Any other ideas as we leave this item number A? Good input. I kind of saw, sorry, go ahead, Eric. Just keep on with it. It almost encompasses B and C.
Yeah, I think that we threw those out. I guess what I'll mention right now, just to kind of get the wheels rolling, we're interested to know what we could task the technical committee with. For the last little while, the technical committee really was designed to help develop the general plan for the Utah Lake Commission. It broke up into various different groups. They tackled transportation, they tackled resource development, and built that entire general plan. In the last year, there has not been a lot for that group to work on. We know that in the near future, the general plan needs to be overhauled. We would love to partner with Forestry, Fire, and State Lands as funding for that becomes available, and get that working. Forestry, Fire, and State Lands is in need of an overhaul on their management plan of the lake, and we've got lots of resources to develop that revised guide for us. And so we've reached out, and I think that it's kind of in the pipeline with Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. Brian, maybe you could talk more about that, but they have been working on a series of plan overhauls across the state, and so we're hoping that ours falls in next in line so that we could work on that. Brian, any feedback on?
Yeah, I was just texting Jamie right there to try to get the exact answer of what the plan is, the scheduling for beginning the update of the comprehensive management plan. We had to finish the whole first cycle of getting CMPs in place for all of the state sovereign lands. That is complete now. Finally, we have a plan in place for all of the state sovereign lands. So now we can begin the process of updating the existing ones. And I'm right with you, Eric. We'll look forward to working with the technical team. We'll do it real close with you. We haven't made that, pardon me, we haven't made the building block request yet. That's the funding request that we need to make to the legislature, because this will be costly. We'll work through a consulting company. They'll take the lead. And we don't intend to make that request this year. There's very, very limited building block requests that will go to the legislature from state agencies this year as a result of the budget impacts from coronavirus. But I would need to confer with Jamie to see if it's on her schedule for next year to make that request. But that means the funding, Eric, wouldn't be available until July of 2022. So we're a couple of years out, assuming the legislature funds it. I'm looking over at my phone because Jamie's texting me, and she confirms that, yes, 2022. But we could begin to do things in advance of that, Eric. On the meeting today, we have the division's new planner our new full-time planning and policy manager, Breanne Emery. Some of you might know Breanne. She came from the Governor's Office of Public Lands Policy. So she knows our agency. She knows a lot of our issues. She's worked on these things, and we could begin to put some of these pieces in place, I think, in advance before the heavy lifting of updating the CMP begins. But circle back to the beginning of this, Eric, absolutely we'll need to and want to use the technical team and their expertise.
In your experience, how long has that process taken?
Well,
is it a 2-year or?
I'm on and can speak to that if you want, Brian.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Eric, it's usually like a 2 to 3 year process, depending on how big the overhaul is. Usually what we do in the beginning is we map out with the consultant what exactly we're amending. And then at that point, we can decide how far out we're going to go into a timeline on it. So on a big plan amendment, you're looking at probably an 18-month to 3-year process.
I ask because the commission has put aside funding every year for the last few years in anticipation of moving ahead with this. And I wonder if we might get the contract in place the year prior to, if you're sure of the year that you will ask for that building block. And if that's fairly standard protocol for the division, and you could be confident in getting the other half, so to speak, we might be able to begin a year prior if that wouldn't be getting ahead of ourselves. Something to think about. You don't have to answer that now, but.
Well, let's do talk, Eric. There's certainly risk in that because we don't make the funding decision, and there's so many levels of approvals that have to happen before even the legislature would appropriate it. And I think more so the risk, because the legislature has been really supportive of our requests for funding for CMPs, developing these plans. They've been supportive since I've been here. I think we could get the funding, but the flip of that is whether a consulting company would want to take on a contract when there is not the full amount up front. I mean, we would have to write the initial contract for whatever money that you have, the preliminary work.
Okay.
But let's talk.
Okay, will do. All right, so let's talk real briefly about the soils report. If you could, we'll share a screen with you. We have our draft soils report back. This is one of those items that we will put into the comprehensive management plan for the lake. Can everybody see that screen that's online now? So this was completed just a month ago or so. The folks took data collection points from 250 different locations. At least they kind of inspected 250 locations, and 150 of those they pulled samples. Those samples were taken below any kind of surface material. In the case of Phragmites, we didn't realize how much work we were putting them into, and they had to sometimes dig as deep as 2 feet to get below the root systems of our Phragmites. But those were all sent to the lab here at BYU, evaluated. We have a draft booklet that goes into fine detail about each of these sample locations. And what we're hoping for is that this can be one task that we can assign the technical committee to work with Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. Laura Vernon already went through a similar type evaluation where they look at the soil types that are in a location and then they assign potential values. So, you know, a plain sandy location could be a future beach. If it's got lots of fines mixed with sand, it could be, you know, a variety of different potentials, be that wetland or what have you. And so that might be something that we could assign our technical committee. But in the meantime, we also have a GIS map of this that any of we'll share with the cities, so that as planning occurs around the lake, they will have that at their availability for figuring out what could be done along that shoreline. If it's wetland all the way through a whole segment, that might not be a good location to try to do any kind of development. But if it's a nice mix of sands and gravels, that could be a location that we could, focus a certain type of development or a certain type of restoration type work there. We'll share the report. Does everybody in the group want that report? Would that be helpful to get to, I don't know, your city folks? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, please.
Okay. We'll share that out. If you have comments on it or have someone that could look at it and give us any feedback before we finalize that draft, that would be really helpful.
And Eric, this is Mayor CUWCD again. And just as we do these kinds of ideas about surrounding the lake and making them waterfowl friendly, just a reminder, we have our little airport going on down there, and waterfowl are not our friend. So we can always think of ways to route them around the airport and draw them further away from the airport. It's always appreciated.
Will do, for sure. Being right there on Provo Bay is probably a challenging location to kind of combine airplanes and lots of birds. So we'll try to focus some of the wetland restoration work, at least to spread it out around the lake so that the birds have other places to go.
That would be so helpful. Thank you.
For sure. Okay.
Eric, on this topic, we talk of wetlands. I'm learning every day, but we have some wetlands that are interior into some areas that can be developed, but the wetlands are, a barrier. And we're learning how to mitigate those. And if you do them up front, you can do a 1-to-1 ratio. And so there might be opportunities that there's wetlands interior into cities that maybe we can move some of those wetlands and make sure that we take care of all the necessary requirements of the Corps of Engineers and state agencies. But if there's areas that you would say, hey, this would be a great wetland, it's not wetlands, we could, we can use some of that land, we could transfer it over and dry up a wetland that's maybe 2 miles away from the lake.
Okay.
I don't know how everybody would feel about that, but we have a park that would be wonderful, but it's currently wetland. But it could, if we mitigate it and move the wetland somewhere else. If we don't do it ahead of time, then it's a 1-to-10 ratio. And so we have to provide much more wetlands. But if you need some more, not by Provo Bay, because we like an airport there too.
We do. There is one location for if folks are looking for, have an area that's not a particularly good wetland that could be better used for something else. There is property at the north end of the lake that is owned by Forestry, Fire, and State Lands that has a mitigation plan to develop it into a wetland that has not been built yet. And so if you have developers that are wanting to put some dollars into a wetland project, there is the property there and that could utilize stormwater and really be an effective new wetland on the north end of the lake, far away from Provo, Mayor CUWCD. That is there. It's probably 8 acres that could be developed right there on the north end of the lake. So,
who would we call? I think that I would like to at least get our staff to at least look at that. Who's the best person that's with us?
Probably Jamie Barnes.
Jamie, I see you, Jamie. Jamie, I'm going to do a little bit of personal business here. Do I have a phone number for you?
I will shoot it over.
I can put it in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Next is a trail announcement. Carrie talked a little bit about trails. No, this you set us up for some exciting announcements.
You can be right there, actually. Okay. There you go.
All right. Well, then they can't see me if I'm pointing. That's the hard part about doing the online version as well. I appreciate taking just a few minutes here to talk about some of the trails that we're working on around the lake. This year in our, with the MPO, Mountain Land Association of Governments, Utah County applied for 2 different trail projects that are directly along the lake. One is in the Vineyard Orem area, known as the Wakara Way project, and one is in the American Fork area, going from Bolt Harbor Road in American Fork over to, I believe it's about Center Street in Lehigh, roughly. There's another project that's currently funded over in that area as well. With those 3 projects, it will almost get us a connection from Saratoga Springs to Orem. There's still a couple of sections that we're missing, but we were successful in that bid on getting those projects funded. They are out in the 2023-2024 timeframe. The one in the American Fork section, we're actually working with TSSD, Timothy Special Service District. They have some sewer line replacements and work they need to do out there. We're trying to combine efforts and only disturb the land once, but have a trail that also acts as a service road for the sewer line through that area. The one that's the Wakara Way project in the Vineyard Orem area, we've been working actively for the last probably 1.5 years or so with the landowners, having very good success there with that. It did go to the state legislature, was received favorably, but unfortunately we didn't get a whole lot of money for it. But I think that effort's going to continue. But we are looking at having those trail connections added in and enhanced a little further south. We're working with Provo City and also the Delta Restoration Project. So there will be a trail along the new Lakeview Parkway that Provo City is building. And then with the Delta Restoration Project, one of the things there that it's not directly related to the lake, but indirectly, I guess, there's a trail that'll go along the south side of the Delta project, tie into the Skipper Bay Trail. It'll make a loop with what's on Provo River. I think it'll be one that'll get used quite heavily because of the loop of the trail. Once we kind of get all those pieces put together, you'll have, and there's also another section that's being worked on by Saratoga Springs out on the west side. Once those pieces all get put together, you'll have trail from the towards the southern end of Saratoga Springs up through the Bolt Harbor in American Fork. We'll have a little gap there between American Fork Bolt Harbor and Linden Bolt Harbor that we're still working on that piece and trying to figure out how to thread the needle through there. And then we'll have a trail again from Linden Bolt Harbor down to the south end of Orem. Another little gap on between Orem and Provo, and then from the north side of Provo all the way around to the freeway, we'll have trails. So we are getting pieces of the trail in place. Carry the long-term goal is to have a trail all the way around the lake. I hope I see that in my lifetime. I'm not banking on it though. So we do have that in the county's master plan and also with Mountain Land on their trails plan as well. So that's kind of where we are with trails. Any questions that the group has for me?
Do we have maps, excuse me, at the access point where people can park when they want to use the trails? Because we have access points for the lake itself, but do we have, so if they want to come and bring their bikes or whatever.
That's probably something we ought to work on.
Who live in the cities that are near there probably know, but the rest of the county might know because they don't want to park in places that they should. I think it is.
We could work with the county in the lake.
Maybe we'll appropriate or funding will almost double the completed trail around this north end of the lake. And because it's going to fill in most of the gaps, it'll probably be the reason why we set up a signage system that finally can get people down, because little tiny snippets that have, well, not, I think some of them are longer, but without connected trail, it has been, I don't know, a challenge to invite people to come down here for biking because they get a 1 mile segment and then they have to turn around and come back. And so there will definitely be a signage system with the county and Mountain Land and the commission have talked in the past and kind of talked about aligning the signage with the Jordan River Trail system so that at least there's a similar branding type. And so that'll incorporate, and we'll for sure have a kind of add into our online version that MAG posts where people can get to it. But those access points would be the initial accesses for the shoreline trail. But there are other community trails, like in Orem, for example, where the Waterbury Way Trail terminates on the south. That'll now finally connect to the Orem community trail. And so this will allow us to start adding all of these access points that were usable, that they kind of terminated where. So yeah, for sure.
And it does all tie back again with all of those community plans. That's where Mountain Land comes into play a lot in trying to bring the cities and the county, everything together so that our trail system is a connected unit. And we're not just each of us going out and doing our own thing and it doesn't all connect. So that's part of that coordination with Mountain Land. Maybe one thought, Mayor Frost, on the comment you'd made about the wetlands. I like the idea. The one thing I would suggest is that if any of the cities have that opportunity you want to look at, let's kind of work on it as a group so that if we need a trail corridor through there, we don't encumber the property with a wetland bank or a wetland mitigation site, and now we can't go through there with the trail. So I think just that coordination should be there as we're moving along with that. But I really like that idea.
Yeah, good point, Richard.
Okay. Yep.
There was some jumping for joy when when we heard that had been approved. So it might sound like a regular status quo type announcement, but we've been pushing and working with Richard and getting Richard in a position that he could apply for this for years. So this is super exciting. Okay, I'll go through my couple slides here. Walkera Way, you just heard the announcement about the trail, so that's the first. There's 2 phases of the trail in that project. That's the first phase of that. We've also been working on vegetation work and a couple other projects. The first 50 acres of fencing should be installed this fall. We had a hiccup in the purchasing or contracting for the fence that was corrected, and we're waiting for bids that come back at the end of the week. Most of the fence is already purchased. This is really an installation bid with one section of tall wildlife fence that the contractor would provide. But that should be installed this fall so that grazing could take place early in the spring. A couple of osprey towers, nesting towers, were installed earlier this year. We talked about one of those, the one in the picture here, already had a nest built, and there's ospreys and chicks hanging out at the nest. So they work. We're working with another group that's considering building some wood duck nesting platforms. They're much smaller than these. These are on a telephone pole or power pole. But I don't know if any of you have seen wood ducks. The area as it gets cleared out will be very attractive for ducks of all types. Wood ducks are one of the most colorful, amazing looking duck. I didn't even realize how beautiful they were until we started looking at photos. So we're going to have this scout troop install some of those platforms. Division of Wildlife has given us some locations where those would be usable. So it's turning into a very beautiful area down there. We look forward to getting a trail into it so people can actually navigate it. So this summer, we had the 2 different contractors work on algae treatments at Utah Lake. This is the first of those. So this is a before and an after at Lincoln Marina. It did a great job. It cleared the water amazingly at Lincoln Marina. There were still some blooms. The major constraint here was that the curtain at the end of the marina that was going to redirect where the water came in was not able to be installed because of wind conditions when they were first installing or attempting that. And so they didn't give up on it, but they added Utah Lake State Park to their treatment to provide a better demonstration of the effectiveness of their treatment regime. So while we did see some incredible improvements in water clarity, there was just enough water exchanging taking place that some of the bloom material was able to stack up there by the boat launch and kind of, put it into an advisory, which didn't exactly help. So, but it showed promise. It showed us that spot treatments can be effective throughout the lake, and that we can use this as a tool in the future for treating kind of hotspots as they come up. Here's another one. This is a different company, ATS, that worked out of Linden. And again, it was a clear example that there are solutions. Band-Aid, I would call them more temporary type solutions, ones that can treat at locations. So at the worst time of the year, maybe we focus on our marinas to keep them accessible. Clearly, there's a big difference between treated and untreated. I would say that the downsides, if there are any, long term, you really couldn't treat a Utah lake with a chemical treatment without a risk to the fishery, for example. Copper treatments, aluminum treatments, they have the ability to build up at the bottom of the lake bed and get to a level where they can be, and there's hope that doesn't take place, but there's the potential that it could become toxic as it builds up on the bottom of the lake bed. And with an endangered species in the lake, that creates a problem. But because we're working on a long-term solution on Utah Lake, that makes this a really good option during the interim to kind of take care of blooms if we have funding in place that kind of plague our marinas, plague some of these quieter, more stagnant locations on the lake where blooms tend to start. So it's a good tool that we have now and know a little bit more about for future blooms and kind of taking care of that until we can implement those long-term solutions. So lakeshore restoration work, watershed restoration initiative, invasive species mitigation program through Department of Ag and other partner projects. I wanted to talk a little bit about this is something that everyone here and your predecessors have heard about for years and years, and I wanted to kind of demonstrate what it means on a large-scale project size like Utah Lake. So Utah County crews are the ones that come down to the lake and implement this. So this is other invasives, so trees and salt cedars that they've come in and taken care of 9.6 acres of. You can see that highlighted in purple there. Here's hand spray, so around the airport, near some of the marinas where the helicopters can't fly on the treatment. Here's where the marsh masters were able to come in and smash down the Phragmites. That's kind of the second phase of the treatment to get it down so that native vegetation, or we can figure out what's going to come up in its place to know whether it needs to be treated again or not. 900 acres. Some of the trees were removed. This is using that forestry tool that we purchased that goes onto the county's skid steer and mows down Russian olive trees that are invading portions of the shoreline. And then this is the aerial treatment with the helicopter from last year, 4,700 acres of Phragmites that was treated. And then before I go to the next one, You might recognize the guy facing away from us, but I wanted to point out that it actually is working. You know, it seems like we just do it over and over and over again, but it's getting better. This is on the left. I was going to offer lunch to anybody, but he's too recognizable from behind. So this is Reed Price, looking out towards the North Point transfer station at just an immense bank of Phragmites. To the right, that's what it looks like, more like today. Here's a different perspective of that. It's kind of looking out of the bay. This is in 1 year. So this is just before it got trampled, and then the lake came up this year and filled in, did it exactly the way it was supposed to. It doesn't always do that. And kind of finishes off the decomposition of the dead material.
A question that I don't know what way I go, but is it county or state employees that do all of this treatment?
County. Yep.
I wanted to make sure that I was thinking it was probably county, but I thought some of that is owned by forestry.
So Forestry, Fire, and State Lands contributes. The county just has a very effective team of weed crew.
Yeah.
And so they're grant funded. So Forestry, Fire, and State Lands puts money in. The watershed program puts money in, and the invasive species mitigation program through UDAF, we apply for grants for those. But then all that funding goes to the county, and they run crews all year long, in fact.
Yeah.
So
I see them out there, but I wasn't sure. So thanks.
We're working in conjunction with the Lake Commission and with the around the lake with the Water Conservancy District. And it's a collaborative effort.
And do the cities do the work that's on their borders, or that's county also?
again, for the implementation of it, county crews do essentially all that work. Historically, occasionally we've had contractors come in and help, but that was prior to the purchase of those marsh masters that now allow us to get out into these previously inaccessible areas. So here's
for example, the areas that are up high that still have those Phragmites. We're looking at purchasing machinery to control our area. So my water crews do work the weed control.
Yeah.
Great collaboration.
It is an immense amount of work. I mean, you look at a bay like this. This is over in Saratoga Springs. The before and after, it's an endless field of it in one, and then they get in there, mow or crush it down, and you get lake again. Here's another one along Eagle Park. Just fully opens that up. I like this one. This is in Lehigh. This is from the exact same photo point. And obviously one you don't even see the mountain, and the other you see both lake, mountain, and some of the shoreline. So
These are important pictures to put in your presentation for state funding.
that they are in there. So it's working. That's kind of the point that I wanted to make. This year, while there was a reduction of as much as 50% in the invasive species mitigation program, state dollars, watershed fully funded, and we were able to get more through Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. So we think that we'll be able to get as much work as we were hoping to this year. And just kind of as an initial, just about the entire shoreline was treated chemically. That just finished yesterday. Shout out, we had Sam on the phone nonstop for a few weeks. There were 431 parcel owners to contact and get a written permission from. And what percentage? 90%?
So it's 430 parcels. There were some people that own multiple, so it was more like maybe 300 landowners, but there's only, I think it's now 17 of those 430 parcels all we were not able to get paperwork on.
So
That's an amazing feat.
and this year we got a 3-year agreement with landowners instead of a every year thing. And so it should speed the process up in the future, but but a huge undertaking and exciting to see that success. We have a presentation from Central Utah on water levels with Tom Brutton. Bruton, sorry.
I'm just Bruton rat all my life. Front works right. I answered everything. Hey, you. Bruton. B-R-U-T-O-N. There's only a few of us in the state. We're all related. We come out of California. We were on some of those 70s implants that came in. Now we call Utah home.
I'll be right here. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how far. I tend to be pretty loud on things. Appreciate being here today. Appreciate the invitation that was extended from you through Chris. I like having Chris in the room. She's a very calming influence. If I get out of hand, she starts giving me signals. You know, calm down, Tom, calm down. But anyway, let's go through this water supply update. We want to talk about the Utah Lake drainage in particular, but I want to broaden your view on how the water system works in the state as a whole with the Central Utah Project and Utah Lake and how it fits, because it is very, very broad. Some of you were in the room last year. This might be a repeat. Maybe I can let you do the exchange portion, whatever, if you would like, stick your hand up. 2020 has been an interesting year. And yeah, like, yeah, laughs, you know, here we are with our masks and things. So I don't know how else to start this presentation, but this way, once upon a time. And we're not going to go to a land far, far away, nor are we going to go to a long time ago. But we are going to back up a little bit and go to April 1, and we're going to stay here in the good old state of Utah. So we came off of a snow accumulation season, our winter season, and April 1, we had a snow water equivalent. Now this is the snowpack on the left-hand side here. Provo, Utah, Jordan River Basin was at 105% of snowpack. Duchesne Basin was at 113. And you're going to say, well, what are you talking about Duchesne Basin? They're very, very interrelated, and we will go into that. Okay, now on the right, the snow was a little bit higher than average. On the right, you can see the values of the precipitation as of March 30th. And that was a little bit lower than normal. So 88% in Provo River, 92% on the Duchesne. So we came in fairly good. Now I'm gonna back way up to 2019. 2019 was a fabulous year. 130% plus precip, 130% plus of snow water equivalent snow depth. And so we came off that year a little bit hopeful that maybe things are changing a little bit, a little more water and things. And up to April 1, things were going great. And then am I doing this wrong? Second. It worked once. See, this is 2020. I mean, this is exactly what 20, see if it'll back up. No, I'm froze. Maybe I'll let you, I can do next slide. That's.
No, it's frozen totally. It's not letting me switch for either.
So that's our water supply update. Appreciate your time. Okay. All right, let's see if we got, okay. This doesn't surprise me. All right, now, so we had that snowpack, we had that precip, and then we had our forecast. And as you look to the north here, Jordan Reservoir towards the top there, April forecast was 100%. If you look out in the Uinta Basin area, you look at Strawberry here, this one got a little scary. It was 63% in April. And then look at Utah Lake. You know, for those numbers, this is kind of a portent of evil or something. We weren't quite sure where we were going to go. You go farther out in the basin, Starvation, 81% in April. You say, well, why talk about starvation? Starvation is important to Utah Lake. I will get to that. But look then at the forecast in June. Drops. Most things drop. Jordan now 17% drop. Utah Lake drops about 8%. Look at the one on Strawberry. Oh my! I haven't seen that big a drop in between April and June forecast. So this is why we had the drop. These are precipitation maps for the months starting April, May, and June. So basically our spring and summer months. Okay, color patterns. Cool colors, starting with greens, moving through all shades of blue, and the darker purples are good. High percents, above 100%. Warmer colors, starting with yellows, working into an orange and all shades of red. And then I don't know why they picked fuchsia. Purple is my favorite color, but fuchsia is bad. Fuchsia is 0 to 3%, 30% of average precip. So here, April 1, we've got a pretty good setback. We've had, precip's a little below average, not too bad. And boom, April, nothing. May, nothing. June saves us a little bit. That was the saving month to have anything on a runoff situation. Okay, now, with the reservoirs, with the status where they were, particularly after coming off a good year in 2019, fortunately, we had some great things happen. Utah Lake filled the compromise this year. That's not to be taken for granted. That is a great thing. Jordanelle filled. You go out in the Uinta Basin, Upper Stillwater filled. I don't know if you've been out to there, the big concrete dam, big spill, big fancy spill and stuff. Strawberry, that's a 1.1 million acre foot reservoir, fills to 91%. There's more water in there than there is here at Compromise. Even that's a lot deeper, obviously. And then starvation fills. So by June, we've had poor precip runoff, take it into the reservoirs. We do pretty good. Okay, now let's go on to July, August, and to date in September. There is a trend here. Fuchsia, fuchsia, fuchsia. And so it's been dry. I've been with this organization going on 34 years. Again, never seen a runoff and a precipitation pattern quite like this year, where we just had a bone dry summer with very few intermittent storms. Okay, so if you take that, here's where we started. This is the same chart you saw, 88% Provo River, 92% on precip. Now, fast forward to yesterday. Nope, we are down into the 70s, lower 70s now on precip for the year to date. And I don't know what your crystal ball is showing, but if you look at the next 10 days, not a whole lot out there. Not a whole lot out there. We will conclude the water year in just a few days, October 1. Will these numbers reach 70? Very possibly, very possible. I don't know what those final numbers will be. But we started out pretty good and then nothing the last half of the year. Okay, to nobody's surprise here, the drought monitor that's done by the NRCS, in this case, a white color is normal. Any shade of any color at all means we're in some status of drought. Red is the extreme drought, and look where we are. We're right smack in the middle. And then exceptional drought, look at that, right on top of you here, okay? This is available. We can give you this. If you want this to use or anything, you're welcome to. Okay, some of the facts that you saw in the newspaper. August, the warmest August in 146 years, data collection. Now I'm going to jump out of the state of Utah because when you get to a world record, I like to show that. Death Valley, can you imagine? And I don't know if this was confirmed or not. I grabbed this from the National Weather Service, and they were waiting to confirm it, but 130 degrees, which had been the hottest verified temperature on the planet since 1913, and maybe the third hottest ever recorded. And I kind of wonder how, their instruments of 1913, I think ours are maybe a little better. And so arguably, maybe that's the hottest temperature ever recorded. So if you want to go to Death Valley, I've been there in January. It's lovely. It is lovely if you go visit Death Valley. Okay, now what comes with dryness? Fires. Ryan's on here. You can talk for days on this. This is the East Fork fire. I lovingly call it the Rock Creek fire. It's also the Upper Stillwater fire. This picture was taken from the top of Upper Stillwater Dam earlier in the early part of the fire there. Now that's up in the wilderness area, and I'm not going to go into the philosophies of, do we let them burn, do we not, anything like that. This next picture is arguably the most ominous picture I have seen taken in the history of my working with the district. This is not sunset. This beautiful reflection in the water is from the fire in the background. And that then fire went to the east side and is up to, as of yesterday, I think about 52,000 acres. So we know the other fires that were happening. In fact, this was an interesting article. It's back from August 2nd. The Upper Provo fire is just one of hundreds that fire officials have had to contend with since the year began. As of August 2nd, so we're about 6 weeks old on this article, the state of Utah had seen 951 total wildfire starts in 2020, at least one ignition every day since April 18th. So April 18th to August 2nd, a new fire every day.
It's still the same today.
Is it?
Still been
One fire, we're at a one fire a day. Okay.
1,300 fires.
Wow. Thank you. I was trying to look for if I had an updated number. I couldn't see an article. I appreciate that. And this is kind of a sad commentary. Well, this is sad. And nearly 75% of Utah's 2020 wildfires have been caused by humans. Now, the Rock Creek, the East Fork fire was a natural fire caused by lightning. So anyway, so there's that. Let's look now. Again, let's prognosticate a little bit. Let's go the next 3 months ahead. On the left, and this is valid as of August 20th, so August, September, October, November, the statistics show that for the state, we have a pretty significant chance of temperatures being above average. Okay. Now, couple that on the right, that shows that the precipitation, significant chance of being below average. So we don't see relief in sight on this at this time. We need some of those big storms, things like that. September, I think it was September 8th, I looked out my office window and there was snow on Timpanogos. And probably many people went out and just enjoyed that for the, 6 hours it lasted until it melted. But that was a great thing. All right, where's our knight in shining armor? We're back to our fairy tale here a little bit. I'm going to reference an article, Wayne Pullen. Some of you know Wayne Pullen. He was the Provo area manager down here for the Bureau of Reclamation, currently a deputy regional director up at the regional office of the Bureau. This is going back to 2019, and that's not a picture of a Central Utah project, Dan. That's actually at Weber Basin. These are the years, 2019, we really like. The system we put together relies on Mother Nature's occasional generosity. I love how he says that. We have designed our data for the most part for carryover storage so we can take a good year and make sure we have enough water for the next few years. Okay, that is one of the key principles of the Central Utah project. Strawberry Reservoir is 1.1 million acre feet. And on those great years, we can collect those very, very high flows. Jordanelle, the same way. These are multi-year carryover reservoirs. I locked myself up.
We're just making things good.
Oh, that's all right. Christine and I talked. She can pantomime whatever I say. We arranged this yesterday. She's good. So this, now we've been talking, here's Utah Lake, okay? Now, what we want to show is how this ties into everything else. Prior appropriation doctrine in Utah water law, first in time, first in right. Well, for this project, that occurs along the Jordan River, north of Utah Lake. And I'm trying to describe this so those that are on the air can kind of follow the map. That's why I'm doing that. I'm pointing for you guys. Good I have to use my hands. I tie them up, I can't talk. So here's the river. Okay, well, that's the earliest rights. So Utah Lake for a long, long time. That's how the water was supplied. Okay, along comes the advent of the projects, the federal projects, the largest one being the Central Utah project. The concept is we collect water in the Provo River, Upper Provo River, that can then be conveyed through pipeline systems and things, treatment plants, and be used. So if we take water out of the Provo River system that depletes water out of Utah Lake, these water rights can be hampered. So how do you replace that? Hence, now we have the Strawberry Aqueduct, all this line right here, Strawberry Aqueduct collection system. There's Upper Stillwater. Water is brought to Strawberry. There's a very complex set of rules and flow regimes and things like that bring water down into Utah Lake. We deliver through Hobble Creek to help with the June sucker. There's a lot of interest, a lot of hands in the or pieces of the pie here that need to be satisfied. So as we take water out of there, this water can go into here so that these rights can be maintained. Now we get to lowly starvation out here. As water is taken in the upper part of the system, again, the senior water rights out in the Weena Basin have to be met. Starvation was built to collect the winter flows and to collect the high runoff so that these water rights could be maintained with Starvation, so that this water could be taken to Strawberry, so that it can be put into Utah Lake to take care of these prior rights, and then water from the upper Provo system can go in this, the Jordanelle, and go through this system. That's your test question, okay? Now you know the entire concept of the exchange. It is very, very integrated, very, very complex. Okay. Now, this shows where the reservoirs are now. We've had a horrible year. We've had a lot of water usage. Utah Lake, 2.8 feet below compromise. You've probably heard the statistic that on a hot day, 1,000 CFS evaporates per day. 2,000 acre feet per day. 2,000 families worth of water gone per day, okay? So to be 2.84 down, 2019 brought us up from over 4 feet down to compromise. Okay, we're coming down here. Will Utah Lake get, go ahead.
That's 2,000 families annual water use, right?
Correct, correct. So yeah, annual water, yeah, I'm going from day, good point. Yeah, it's 2,000. So does Utah Lake get back to compromise next year? Shine up your crystal ball. If we have a 2019, we can get there. If we have this year, obviously it's going to be very, very difficult. Our operations staff, I talked to a couple of them, very familiar with the lake. You know, if we get to within a foot of compromise with a normal runoff, we will have done well next year. If we can get above average, maybe we can get back to compromise. Strawberry or Jordanelle still at 8%. That reservoir has much carryover capacity, maybe 5 to 7 years with our current contracts that we have. Strawberry is at 85% full. Now we're not under full demand yet. The Central Utah project with Strawberry Reservoir. But that out of 1.1 million acre feet, there's still more water in Strawberry than there is with Utah Lake at compromise. It's 900 plus thousand acre feet right now. And then Starvation, 71% full. That one fortunately has a very good water supply and will be able to fill. So this all relates to the mission of Central. The district's mission is to responsibly plan for the future by developing, delivering, and efficiently using our limited water resources. Now, we are in the business of looking to the future. 50 years. Our financial models, we keep extending them. Our capital improvement plans, we continually move forward. We are evaluating the current infrastructure in place, looking to when these major projects have to be replaced. We have a $30 million project going on in the Uinta Basin, replacing a 7-foot diameter pipe. It's lovingly called the North Fork Siphon. That's a whole nother presentation for another time, but we have to look to the future. The state's going to double in population. We know all the numbers from the CUWCD Gardner. We can't stand by and just let things happen to us. We've got to be proactive and move forward. So with that said, how do we end our fairy tale? And we will all live happily ever after if we will use water wisely.
So Tom, with that growth, I mean, all of us representing cities, and we're trying to plan and use water wisely. The question always is will we have enough water, especially in Utah County where we're going to grow significantly?
Well, you're going to go from 600,000 to 1.6 million, according to the CUWCD Gardner report.
Right.
We have a planning group together that is working with the cities and down here right now. And are you aware of that? Dave Pitcher, he's working with them. Gene Shawcroft is working with them, our general manager and things. We want to be a part of your discussions. And our people would love, coordinating through Chris, to come to the cities and whatever information you would like, we can bring technical staff. Probably the biggest concept is you can't go it alone. You have to work together as the cities and see where those mutual benefits are and the economies of scale. If you're not going to run one pipe to city A, one pipe to city B, you've got to run one trunk line and be able to share and be nice to each other. We know how that goes. And I know your cities are very complex, and I just appreciate the work that you do. I live in Duchesne, okay, pretty easy, okay? 1,600 people. This one's you're a lot more complex, but we will offer that, whatever we can do to help in your planning and things. like I say, coordinate through Chris, you'll get through the right people and stuff. So you have a very, very valid concern. We are planning 50 years ahead in Utah County. We have a pipe that's being built from the mouth of Spanish Fork Canyon, the Utah Lake System pipeline, part of the Central Utah project. It's going to go all the way down to Santaquin. Reaches are being completed as we speak. Spanish Fork's getting their first deliveries from it this year. Okay, and those will increase on an as-needed basis. There's contracts in place to do that. Our Central Water project, which is a project that was developed when we purchased the water rights from Geneva. We bought those. So the land, went to Anderson. We bought all the water rights, developed a project that takes pipe all the way around the north side of Utah Lake. There's a terminal finished water reservoir up in the Saratoga Springs area, and the deliveries are going to Saratoga Springs. They're going to Eagle Mountain, and then they also go up into the south side of Salt Lake County. What's going to happen on the back side of the mountain? We're wanting to know. We've seen the population distribution that the Mountain Land Association of Governments did. They keep the population more over here. Now, if you know something that we don't, we need to know that, because infrastructure takes time. Putting up a power line and stringing wires is one thing. Putting 7 or 5 foot diameter pipes for finished water or 10-foot diameter tunnels for unfinished takes more time. Water is heavy. And yes, for those on the screen, it was that move your fingers across each other in the form of it takes money. We appreciate that. We appreciate that. So the generations that will use future facilities, they're not here yet, but we've got to look for a treatment plant in South Utah County. We are buying the land to do that. We have that kind of, we see that. We don't have to put it in a certain spot so that our facilities right now can be able to feed it and things like that. So anything, and I'm going to defer to Chris here in just a minute, anything we can do to help in that planning, we would love to be involved. We don't want to take ownership of your problems, but we want to help you out to solve them. How's that? Say that politically. Chris, I'm going to defer to you.
Well done.
All right, I've left a few books up here, propaganda, 2019 annual reports, facility data books, and things like that. Any other questions?
I have a quick question for you, Tom.
Okay, go ahead, sir. Well,
Mayor, go for it.
Okay, so when we see those, those quick recoveries, with a storm system that might come in or a series of storms, and how those the colors might change in a quick way. Are they due to the runoff that is collected into the drainages? Is it due to what we think is good conservation practices through the citizens that they're now, okay, I don't need to run my sprinklers, therefore we're not using the water? Is it a combination of both? Because it looks to me like you had some things that, with a couple good storms, boy, those colors change pretty fast. And I know they're not very long lasting. They might just be for a few weeks, but is it a combination of both?
Okay, great question. Most of the colors that you see on the precipitation charts are strictly the effects of the storms. Now, the latter part of that, how does that affect the reservoir? Well, obviously the storm can contribute to the reservoir, though most of our filling of reservoirs related to the runoff. A given individual storm usually doesn't have a big effect. Over a month period, yeah, that can raise it up. Now, if we have let's look at May I'm trying to remember the month of May where everything was blue 3 or 4 years ago. You have a dual effect where, just like you're saying, Mayor, you have water that's coming into the reservoirs, and then the deliveries out of the reservoirs have reduced, so you get the double benefit. And that, I'm glad you brought that up. When we use the term efficiency, okay, conservation has a little bit of you're conserving, but you don't really answer for what. And I know there's lots of needs for the water. Efficiency brings that concept to the table of, if you are able to use less water in a culinary sense, are you planning to use it for additional population, for stream flows, for lake levels? That's the larger conversation. That's the efficiency. We've all heard the phrase, the desert's going to bloom as a rose. Well, do you want the roses in the park strips, or do you want, why do you need park strips and things? That's a great place to conserve water. And we have programs that we are working on. We're working on Chris, you might have to help me on this. There's a state, we have to produce a conservation plan. Okay, now I'm going to use the word conservation because that's what they did. And we have to have that board adopted, and that will be adopted in the October board meeting. So we are looking at ways to be more efficient through good water application technologies and good practices. So you have a great sprinkler system and it's running during a rainstorm. The technology is good, but the practice is poor. So we need to, as a people, see how we can do things like that. And then, just like this Friday, my son closes on a house out here in Utah County, and I am glad that he can stay in the state of Utah, contribute to this economy, and be able to stay close so that I can be with my grandkids. Do we want our population to stay, which of that growth, 70% of it's our own kids and grandkids, do we want our people to be able to stay, or are we going to export arguably our greatest product, which is our own posterity? So thank you, mayors. Mayor, is that close enough on the answer, or I kind of get rolling here?
Oh, no, that's great. Thank you.
So decision makers here in this room that are on here, a lot of you are mayors. I see all the blue tags over here. Thank you. Central wants to be a part of your knowledge pool. Central wants to be a part of your planning. Work together. Come up with regionalized solutions. We'll do the best we can to help in any way we can. Okay, Eric, thank you. I'll just defer. And I'll excuse myself. And Chris, you've got a great person here. She does great work. We appreciate her. And she's right next to my office. You can calm down. Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Jessica, are you ready?
I am ready. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you allow me to share my screen?
Yes. That should hopefully allow you to now.
All right. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me back to talk about update on the Utah Lake Water Quality Study. Just as a reminder, I know there's a couple new members of the commission, so just a quick reminder of the scope of this study. The purpose is to identify appropriate in-lake numeric nutrient endpoints to protect the various uses of Utah Lake. This is a project that we started about 2.5 years ago and are making good progress on. It was initially funded with $1 million grant from the Water Quality Board. We were given a $500,000 appropriation from the legislature, and I was back and talking with you all last December about some of our funding shortfalls for the project, but I'm pleased to report that we've found some funding in the form of the settlement that you may have heard about related to the Gold King mine spill. We will dedicate some of the $3 million grant that we got from EPA towards this Utah Lake project because it's such a priority in terms of water quality issues in the state. Our study process is consensus-based, focused on transparency and science-based decision-making. I'll show you real quick reminder of how that process works. And also as a reminder, largely there is some concern about the implementation aspects of this study. And the division's made a commitment to all of the cities and districts around the lake that there would be no changes associated with this study to any wastewater discharge permits until after 2030. So the study process, are you guys seeing my, let's see if there we go. The study process includes the Utah Lake Commission, as well as a steering committee that was approved by the commission to oversee the scientific studies associated with the water quality issues. We also have a science panel that the steering committee sat, and we've had a lot of great work going on over the last year, but we want to make sure we keep the Utah Lake Commission in the loop as we move forward. So the steering committee is made up of 16 members, represent different stakeholders around the lake, including 3 municipalities and a POTW, publicly owned treatment work. We also have the science panel that's really based on specific expertise that are needed to understand and model the water quality and harmful algal bloom issues in Utah Lake. Once we come up with a recommendation, we will bring that recommendation to the commission, and we'll bring you interim products along the way, and I want to talk about one of those specifically today. At the end of this process, in 2 or 3 years, we'll then take those recommendations to our Water Quality Board for approval, and then to EPA. And you may remember that in the 2019 legislative session, there was another step added, which will require some approval by the Utah legislature if the costs of the implementation exceed various thresholds. So today I wanted to talk about something that we've been working on with the steering committee for about 6 months, and that is identifying the water quality management goals for the lake. You know, this really sets the scope of the studies that we're conducting. We want to make sure that when we're done with our study, we're able to communicate any benefits that we're going to see to the various uses in the lake in terms of fishery, waterfowl, aquatic life, recreation, as well as the agricultural uses. We want to make sure that those benefits are clear as we look at the potential costs for implementation. So these management goals are effectively a statement about the desired condition for the societal, economic, and ecological values of concern that relate to those 3 uses. And I presented on this at your last meeting in concept, and today I'd like to just go through the initial list of draft management goals that the steering committee has come up with. And I'll be back in December with a little bit more detail. Just so you understand kind of how we're structuring these goals. Each goal is specific to one of the 3 uses, whether it's aquatic life, recreation, or agriculture. We've got a goal statement, and then a connection to water quality. And in some cases, we have a numeric target for those. And in some cases, our metrics will just be informational for you all to see when we move towards a decision. So here are the management goals that we've come up with so far for recreation. Big picture, Utah Lake supports a robust recreational industry and community, including increased recreational opportunities and experiences. And then there's a number of goals that support that larger goal, that harmful algal blooms will not create toxins that threaten public health, that harmful algal bloom occurrence is limited in spatial extent and frequency. Swimming beaches and shoreline access locations are open all summer without nuisance algae or public health advisories, that all recreation water quality standards are supported, that sport fish are safe for human consumption, and that there's improved public perception of Utah Lake and its water quality. So those are the recreation goals we've come up with thus far. On the aquatic life front, the big picture goal, first one is that the warm water fishery is robust and healthy. And that includes that harmful algal bloom toxins do not cause fish mortality, and that all aquatic life water quality standards are supported. The second is that Utah Lake supports a reproductive population of June sucker. June sucker has been an important part of the ecosystem, and there's been a lot of effort put into its recovery. There's a number of sub-goals there that the macrophyte habitat, that's the plants around the lake, can support the June sucker. Some of these are related more to water quality than others. But in this case, reestablishment of that macrophyte habitat is to a certain extent dependent on sufficient water quality. That the carp population does not inhibit June sucker recovery, and that there's a sufficient percentage cover of native and desirable plant species around the lake. The Phragmites work that you're all doing certainly contributes to that goal. And then finally, that Utah Lake supports a healthy waterfowl and shorebird habitat. And here we're interested in understanding the connection between water quality and some of the food sources for birds, macroinvertebrates, the bugs that live in the shoreline. And also that harmful algal bloom toxins do not threaten waterfowl and shorebird habitat and don't cause bird mortality. Then finally, on the agricultural front, we have 3 goals. First, that the water used to irrigate crops will not present a health risk, that the water used to water livestock will not pose health risks to animals, and then finally, that the water used for secondary water does not clog or impede irrigation systems. So those are the big picture goals. We're still working on finalizing this. We'll be meeting with our steering committee again towards the end of the month, but I'd be happy to hear any comments from you all as we move forward with finalizing that list of goals. And just as a reminder, in the end, eventually, the idea is to have these goals deliver you information so that we can do a proper cost benefit analysis of any water quality improvements that we might recommend. So there's clearly costs associated with reducing nutrients in the form of wastewater infrastructure, stormwater infrastructure, agricultural improvements, and habitat restoration. The benefits are public health, improved aquatic life, fisheries, improved recreational opportunities, and then protecting the secondary water uses of Utah Lake. So next steps, we'll be taking this draft back to the steering committee at the end of September. There's a lot of work to do to figure out how to measure and communicate against each of those different management goals. We'll then take it to the science panel in October. There's a number of technical questions associated with how to model and analyze the data that would give us the information about whether and how each of those management goals is supported. So the science panel should help us fill some of those data gaps and look at the feasibility of the models to answer some of the questions we're asking. And then we'd like to bring this back to you as a commission at your next meeting in December. So that's all I've got. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Eric has also been very involved in this, and I'm sure, Eric, if you want to add anything, of course, feel free.
No, thank you for that description.
I have a question. Sorry, I'm full of questions today, but you know, going through this process and the role of the commission, do you anticipate it being just mostly informational? Does it come down to where it becomes an action item where the commission at that point kind of weighs in through a voting process? And I'm just curious, maybe the steps as you see it, and the role of the commission through this process.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think that right now it's informational. We're doing a lot of technical work, and we want to keep the commission, up to date. But ultimately, we want, whether you call it an approval or an endorsement or whatever, we do think there's a formal role for the commission to weigh in on the costs and the benefits of recommendations that come out of this study. We're talking about the long-term future of your community and of this lake that the community down in Utah County largely utilizes. So the way it's set up would be that the recommendations would come before the commission for a formal vote, whether we call that approval or endorsement. We don't legally need that to move forward with a water quality standard. The Water Quality Board retains that authority. But I feel strongly that there's, because this is such a big project, it's important to have buy-in from local elected officials. I don't see that it would make it very far without that. So that's a long answer to yes, it should be voted on, and I hope that there will be consensus coming out of the steering committee, and if not, this commission will have the burden to sort of think through those costs and benefits and the long-term future of the lake.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
I would just add to that we really do need the legislature to know that local elected officials very much support improvements to Utah Lake, and that as you've come through the process and kind of understood what needs to happen in order to see those changes, that the local elected body supports moving ahead to see these improvements made. If the legislature hears crickets and all they hear is that this might be costly to see these changes happen, they might think that they're standing up for you by saying, no, don't make any of these improvements. And so they will need to feel supported in agreeing to allow these improvements to be made. So that's probably the most important thing that our elected officials here today can do, is help this process, understand it well, and then be supportive as it goes through final rulemaking.
Thank you for that understanding. All right. Okay, let's move on to item number 9. Is there any other questions for Erica? Sorry, I didn't want to cut it short. Okay, item number 9. Sam, you're in the background. You're gonna have to get in the front now.
Well, except for I'm lucky enough to be sitting in front of the laptop, so I get to stay sitting down.
Okay.
All right, let me just move to our next slide here.
Does that chat say that you're going to put these things, you're going to send them to us, like you're also putting them on the YouTube channel?
So we always list our audio minutes on the YouTube channel so anybody can listen to them, and then we do minutes for you all. But I think it was Chris Karn or maybe Chris Condi asked for the presentation, so we'll email them out. But the video itself will be on YouTube. Today, I just wanted to hit on 3 outreach elements really quick. The photo contest was brought up earlier, and I didn't put together a slide because there isn't much to show at the moment. The contest just closed yesterday, and we accomplished a record 186 submissions. Compare that to 4 years ago, we averaged about 30. Last year, I believe the number was around 130 or so. So we're very excited to work together with the people who'll be judging, which is an anonymous panel intentionally, so there's no hurt feelings, hopefully, by anybody. But we look forward to that in the coming weeks. So in the December meeting, we should have the annual availability to all of you who are board members to request one of the winning photos for display in your public offices, and we can work on getting those for you. The other 2 events that we wanted to talk about are the Utah Lake Scavenger Hunt, which there are several slides, but I'll move through quickly because I know we're short on time. This event was an idea that came about in partnership with the June Sucker Recovery Program in lieu of the annual Utah Lake Festival. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, that wasn't able to happen. And so we brainstormed some ideas and wanted to start by saying thank you to the June Sucker Program for partnering with us and helping us cover the costs associated with this. What this was a digital scavenger hunt involving the entire county. So there were participants from various cities across the county in completing missions that helped people reacquaint themselves with Utah Lake in a fun and educational way. So, like we mentioned, June Sucker Recovery Program was a great partner. We also had several sponsors who helped cover the cost of prizes and such, and we wanted to thank them for that. Just some real quick statistics for you. We created 165 missions. So some of those were text missions where there were questions and they had to submit an answer, a response. Some of those were like trivia questions, or they had to watch a video and tell us something they learned about the lake. Some were photo and video missions where they had to go to the lake somewhere and do a specific activity and take video or photo as proof. And sometimes that was things like, see how many people you can fit on one paddle board, or another was find a picture of Phragmite, hide in it and take a picture of your team, and other fun things to try and help people get to the lake and have a fun and educational experience. So it ran for 14 days. We had 167 active teams. So by that, you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, we had 204 teams sign up, but active as defined by the company that we used, Goose Chase, is they completed at least 1 mission. So we did have several, or I shouldn't say several, we had 40 plus teams who signed up and did not do something. So we'll be looking at that for future to try and make sure we can get them all participating. But based off of those teams, we estimate there was somewhere between 300 and 500 Utah County residents who participated. And they averaged about 24 submissions. So that means they completed about 24 out of the 165 missions. Those sponsors that donated, that actually was valued total at just over $2,300. So we're really appreciative of the sponsors that we had. So some analysis from that of how successful the event was. If anybody hasn't heard of Net Promoter Score, it's a system of asking the question,
how likely are you to recommend XYZ to a friend or family member, and why? So we asked, how likely are you to recommend this event to people? And then you look at who responds of a 9 or 10 for very likely. They're your promoters, people who love it, want to talk about it, will help you spread the news. 7s and 8s are passives. They don't really apply in the equation because they're not invested, nor do they hate your product. And then 0 through 6 are your detractors. That's where you look for trying to mitigate damage in association with it, trying to get feedback on what can be improved. So we actually did 2 different Net Promoter Scores. We did one for the lake as a whole. The first mission that all teams were able to complete in the game was the question, how likely are you to recommend Utah Lake to a friend or family member? Well, not surprisingly, our score was not very good. 20, so the score system, Net Promoter Score, goes from -100 up to 100. Most events and such things that we've run, so those are smaller scale, obviously, an event, not the lake, they run normally in the 30s to 40s or higher. We looked at some of the feedback they provided, and that gives us information on what we can do to continue to educate people and improve the lake to help it be a better experience. We did also do an analysis. So we asked that question at the beginning. Of the 159 teams who answered at the beginning, 20 also answered at the end the same question. How likely are you to recommend Utah Lake to friends or family? So of those 20 people, in the beginning, their Net Promoter Score was 35, so a little bit higher than maybe the whole group. But at the end, that same group, their Net Promoter Score went up to 50, which is a significant increase in Net Promoter Score. So we were really pleased to see that this event had the effect that we hoped it had of improving public perception, reacquainting people with Utah Lake in a fun and educational way. So we were really excited to see that. I had a couple quotes up from some of the teams that were winners that really were very engaged in the game. My favorite is actually right there at the top that, I love that this scavenger hunt is making us explore new adventures that we typically wouldn't even think of. And that was a very common trend, that people were very excited to get information about Phragmites and algae blooms and other topics that they wouldn't have thought to look out for, or to go do events and things at the lake they wouldn't have thought to do themselves. So definitely very successful. We did do an actual survey to the participants, and these were some of their responses. Social media was a great source for them to hear about it, so obviously we'll continue with that with other events. Again, as I mentioned, there was a pretty wide spread of cities. That's not the full list. There's 3 sheets from the form that were, but a very wide representation across the county. One that also made us very excited, we did have almost 17% of the people who took the survey said they'd never been to Utah Lake before. So it's a great way to reach new people too. The Net Promoter Score for this specific event, instead of the lake as a whole, was 65. So definitely a great, considering for events and programs industry-wide, a good score is about 30 or 35. So almost double the score that's a good industry standard was a great result for us. We actually specifically asked them, one of the objectives was to improve your perceptions. Do you feel that this accomplished that your perception of the lake was improved? 100% of the people surveyed said yes. So we were really excited to see that that was accomplished as well. We also asked them, are you likely to return to the lake again because of the event? 25%, said likely, and 75% very likely. So no one felt like it affected it negatively, which is also really good feedback. So yes, please.
So they signed up online. I mean, I promoted it in our city, etc. Was it mostly families, or were there businesses that had business teams? I didn't think of it till later about we should each have a city team that we have in there, because that would help promote it.
Sure.
For ourselves, but I didn't really. This is our first year. It sounds like it was incredible. I was out of town and not able to participate, but maybe if we do it again, that would be something we could highlight. Especially if we're going to talk to our Chamber of Commerce's, that they each have a team, and then that each city has a team.
Great idea. Really, honestly, that's a great idea. This time, like you said, with it being kind of the first time, we were kind of doing a shot in the dark. We weren't really sure how many people were going to join. As far as the statistics, it's a little inaccurate. So the teams is how we chose to organize it. With Goose Chase, the company, you can do participant games or team games. And we decided, well, you can do a team of 1, but we'd like families to do it together. And so that way they can sign up for separate profiles, but have the points all go to the team if they wanted to. So that's how we structured it, but that's also why there's some nuance in how many we estimate participated. For instance, one of the winners, they actually had 6 family members. 4 of the family members signed up as participants. So I know we had 265 participants, but it gets a little bit skewed. But that is a great idea to try and expand it further. And we have discussed this already as staff that we would like to put it on again next year as well. And so I think that is a great marketing idea to try and take it to the chambers of commerce and businesses in the cities and try and work more closely now that we have kind of the first round experience of understanding how it's going to work. That would be a great improvement. So thank you for the idea. And I should mention as well. And we also want, I'm glad Carrie brought that up, that I wanted to thank, we heard several city council members got mentioned by the teams. They said, oh, I heard this from my city council member. That's why I came and played. So we did want to thank the board for the promotion efforts that you all have made in helping spread the word about it. So definitely a great event. We really enjoyed it. The last thing that we wanted to share was an idea that Eric brought up in our previous governing board meeting, which was for a life jacket drive at Utah Lake. This idea kind of got started with the double fatality that occurred earlier in the season at the lake. And so right now the event is going to happen. The physical drive itself will happen September 30th through October 7th. We have all kinds of marketing materials that if the board would like to receive them, I can do so. We already had plans to send it to all the city communication staff that we work with as well. There's, social media posts, flyers, TV banners, that kind of stuff that can be used. But the physical drive will run from the 30th of September to October 7th. There are several donation locations across the county right now. We have 4 of the 5 public marinas listed on the website, which are Saratoga Springs Marina, American Fork, Linden, and Utah Lake State Park, that will all have a box or barrel with a sign where people can drop them off. And then Orem City, their city offices will host one, and we've been working with Provo City to host it at their recreation center. So they will have one there as well. And then I believe we have our office listed as well. If anybody wants to be able to stop by our offices in Provo, they always can do that too. So the physical drive will happen during that time period. We've got a lot of work going on. There actually is a link online for monetary donations as well to support this program. So the effort is not just to collect these life jackets. That's what will happen during the dates mentioned on the screen. But the donation link will stay up significantly longer than that. And the idea is to implement a life jacket loaner program at multiple access points at Utah Lake. As of right now, Utah Lake State Park does run their own. That's a division program that they run at all of their state parks. And then there was an Eagle Scout project in the past that happened at Saratoga Springs that has the stand there. But they would welcome, when we talked with them, they would welcome more life jackets that can go on that stand as well. So the program would hopefully supply life jackets, install new stations, and work towards other efforts that are a part of the program to promote water safety at the lake. So these flyers, demonstrate that we're looking for, lightly used life jackets. These need to be in good condition, can be used, but we'll obviously review that as well.
Putting the flyers also in the sporting goods shops around town? Because
great question.
One of our residents said, Carrie, you talked about this at a council meeting, because I talked about it at one of the council meetings when we first brought it up. And they were going to be buying new life jackets. And so they were wondering, oh, when we buy a new one, is there a place to put the old one, or do we need to save it until we have the official drive? But
sure.
I thought that maybe that would be helpful along the way if we're going to continue it, is having those there when people pick it up. They say, oh yeah, my old one, I can.
That's a great idea. We are working on trying to expand where drop-offs can go and also marketing. So for instance, Orem City is actually reaching out to both of their boat retailers that they have in the city to talk with them about being a location and trying to facilitate that relationship. We have an order in printed for flyers and also some additional signs that will go up in some public locations. And we have plans to distribute them to what connections we have, like sporting goods stores, some of the sponsors for our other contests, to try and get the word around as best as possible. We are also working with the KSL reporter who ran the story about the friends who died on the lake, and they are going to help us get out the information as well. They're very excited to hear it. They actually connected us with one of the family members who had the idea that I believe we may have mentioned this at the last governing board meeting. They reached out to Utah County about putting up a life jacket stand at the Knolls, because that's the area they launched from. And so I had the pleasure of speaking with her one of the sisters, Stephanie, the sister of Priscilla, yesterday. And she was very excited to hear that there's other interest and that we can kind of pair our ideas and work together to expand it even further, to make it kind of a legacy to try and really make a difference in people's lives. So we're very excited. And thank you again. Always great ideas. We appreciate that. So that is what I had. If there are any questions about the photo contest, the scavenger hunt, or the life jacket drive, I'd be happy to take those.
You're sending us the media kit.
Yes, I have it already in a Google Drive. I would be happy to send that with the presentations and everything else that we send out today.
Okay, thank you, Sam, very much. Okay, item number 10, just a reminder, our next board meeting will be December 10th. We'll see what the conditions are at the time and whether we'll have a virtual, dual option, or we'll just have an in-person meeting. So we'll keep that open to us. Item number 11, is there anybody that would, from the general public or that's in attendance or online, that would like to make a comment?
Can we just read out a couple public comments that came in on the chat?
Okay.
So we have a comment from Soren. I'm assuming that's probably Soren Christians, or Soren Simonson, excuse me, from Jordan River Commission, asking about what happens with revegetation after Phragmites removal. Did I say Simonson? My apologies. Eric, I believe, has the answer on that.
Yeah. So most of the vegetation is simply.
Eric, can you grab the mic?
Most of the vegetation from Phragmites work is crushed or mowed and is left to decompose along the shoreline. A small portion within a buffer zone of the Jordan River is designed to be burned to prevent it from coming down the Jordan River, and specifically to get clogged in, to prevent it from getting clogged in the pumps of the pump houses. We do have that scheduled to be burned sometime after October 13th this year. But that is just that small area, because burning, the downside to burning is that it stimulates regrowth. So we limit it to just those areas where leaving the biomass on the ground would potentially cause other problems.
The only other comment we had was from Chris Condi asking, can we get all the presentations sent out to us? And we did reply that we will send out all presentations to the board via email later today.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go back to Soren. Sarah, did that sufficiently answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. All right. There's no other public comments. I would take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion we adjourn.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second, and I'll call for a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you. On this end, on the technology side, I felt like I was very much a little bit at times couldn't hear, but bits and pieces. But I think in general, I think it was very well put off. So thank you very much for your work. Okay, we'll see you in December.